Well, hello everybody, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Story to Screen podcast, the movie review podcast where we review all different kinds of movies, new and old. I am your host, Chris, and welcome to the next part of our Batman v Superman specials as we do the commentary track for Christopher Nolan's final part in the Dark Knight trilogy, The Dark Knight Rises. So in order to join our commentary, make sure you have either a Blu-ray or DVD version of Rises. Make sure your time is set up to 00 minutes and 00 seconds. And once I go through the countdown, and once I say hit play, that's when you hit play. Sit back and enjoy.
There's a storm coming.
You sound like you're looking forward to it.
I'm adaptable.
What are you?
I'm Gotham's reckoning.
Did they kill him?
I'm not sure.
Why didn't you just kill me?
Your punishment must be more severe.
Do you think he's coming back?
I don't know. Why would you run, Bane?
You should be as afraid of him as I am.
I won't bury you. I've buried enough members of the Wayne family.
You don't owe these people anymore. You've given them everything.
Not everything. Not yet.
My mother warned me about getting into cars with strange men.
This isn't a car.
3, 2, 1, hit play. And we're off.
All right, Dark Knight Rises. So I'm seeing pop up on the X-ray on Amazon that Christopher Nolan said this film's theme deals with pain.
I've heard in interviews with him, he said more specifically consequences, which kind of yields pain. You know, take discipline. You know, take naughty children, for example.
Well, I can see that, especially considering, you know, as we'll see what happens to Bruce Wayne and, you know, physically and psychologically.
Yeah. I think that's one. Actually, I'm not going to lie. That's probably one of the negative aspects I have about this movie, because I think the theme of consequences is really pushed over is really nailed into your head or beat it over your head so many times throughout this movie. I think I kind of got tired of it, especially like physically, because he's broken down physically and mentally, and just something. I think I just got weary about that. So
no, I'm kind of with you on that one. It was like, okay, Batman's beaten. Okay, he's still beaten. Okay, he's beaten again. Okay, he's still beaten. It's just like, all right, can we have some redemption here, please?
Yes, exactly. It is. go ahead.
I like that they create that arc between the two movies by showing that brief glimpse of the funeral.
Yeah, it definitely highlights the most significant part of the last film to some degree.
Yeah.
It is kind of funny watching this, or actually kind of sad, because as we all know, when this movie opened, the tragedy in Colorado.
Yeah.
Were you aware of that going into this movie? Or
I'm trying to remember when I saw that. I think I saw it before that happened, actually.
Okay. It happened opening week, but
yeah, I forget when exactly I saw it, but it is kind of tragic. I mean, thinking about someone chose this movie to wreak havoc.
Yeah. Now, this is I actually think, honestly, the first 6 minutes right here of the movie, like the whole plane sequence, I think, honestly, in my opinion, this is the best part of the whole movie, actually.
No, this is definitely a great scene because it just really establishes the character of Bane.
Yes, I think this scene effectively, more so than any of the other scenes in the movie, establishes as an intimidating presence. Mm-hmm. I feel like. I just don't think this scene, maybe with the exception of the fight scene in the sewers, I do think that this is the only scene where I felt truly intimidated by him. But and speak of the devil, here he is himself, Tom Hardy's Bane. Although,
not gonna lie, the voice kind of threw me for a little while. I was like, what is this, Sean Connery? But once the scene really got into it, like, yeah, it's like, holy cow, this is a very intimidating person.
I'll comment a little bit on the voice later, because I want to kind of be a little bit positive about this sequence. But Hardy, with what he's given to script-wise, what he's given, I think he tries to bring a lot to a very, I don't want to say limited. Well, I think he's limited in the terms of facial areas, but he's pretty effective. Like this shot right here with the eyes, he's not blinking at all. It's a pretty effective performance, in my opinion.
I mean, it's hard to do much with a mask over your face like that, to really emote or to create any kind of tension. But he managed to pull it off.
Yeah. One thing I will say, though, that some people have voted this as the best Tom Hardy performance, and I'm like, are you kidding me? Bronson, Mad Max Fury Road, Warrior, he has done far superior movies, in my opinion.
He really is a genuinely fantastic actor.
Oh, yeah. Inception,
and yeah, Inception. Apparently, he's in Revenant. What was the movie I was just thinking of?
This Means War.
Peaky Blinders. I forgot he was in that, TV series.
Yeah.
Did a fantastic job there. Yeah, the movie Lawless.
I've not seen Lawless.
It didn't get. It was kind of underrated, in my opinion, but just a fantastic flick. And Tom Hardy did such a good job in it. I feel like he really is kind of an underrated actor.
Really? Because I think he's on this really big streak as of late. Since Inception, he's been on a huge streak as a movie star.
Well, I think after Mad Max, that really put him ahead. But up until that point, no one had really taken him. Oh, I guess really up until this movie, no one had really taken him that seriously.
Okay. By the way, I actually just love that little moment right there with the guy, and he sacrifices himself. When he tells him, no, brother, stay in the ship. You just see that brotherly, or just that connection between him and his men. There's almost just like a terrorism, basically, but just that almost like a dying, willing to die for the cause.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, that whole scene when the plane falls and Tom Hardy and Bane and the other guy are in it, that was actually real. That was a real shot of the plane falling. Actually, that was all shot practically.
Yeah, that was a great practical effects shot. Just that whole scene, really.
Oh yeah. I'm not gonna. One thing I'm not a huge fan of. I'm sorry if I'm going to be really negative with this movie because it is the one I have the most problems with. I'm not gonna lie, but one thing about the Harvey Dent aspect about this movie was that I felt like they made him seem far more evil than what he really was. Actually, you know what I mean? Yeah, that whole thing with the family, Gordon's family, was pretty edgy. But they made him seem like a far more evil man than what he actually really was. Especially from what we saw in the last film. You know what I mean? I don't know if you got that sense at all.
No, not so much. I feel like he's portrayed again as a guy who just got pushed over the edge and just ended up going crazy. Like we're seeing right here, he's looking back and thinking, holy cow, he held my family, and threatened my own life. That's kind of a big deal. Not exactly something you can just recover from.
No.
So I feel like Commissioner Gordon is at this point, he just kind of struggling with his role and everything and what's just happened in the previous film. And
yeah, maybe it's just because when we get to the end, like with the Bane reveal and all that stuff, I feel like there's something because that's it. Like after it's revealed that the true identity of Harvey Dent, it's just kind of fall into the side. It's kind of because the whole Dent thing is then kind of forgotten at that point in time. I felt like there was something missing there, but
well, yeah, there were a lot of holes in this whole film, really. Again, going back to what we discussed in the last film, can you imagine how much better this would have been if Heath Ledger had lived?
It just would have been a superior movie, in my opinion. But
absolutely.
Marion Cotillard. I just adore that woman.
She is beautiful.
Oh my gosh. Have you seen just interviews with her? Just not just the other movies she's done, but just interviews with her. She's just she plays a lot of these crazy, women or something like that. But she is just the most down to earth, sweetest lady you could ever meet. And that's what I've heard from other people that have worked with her. She's the most sweetest lady, you could ever meet on the planet. And I honestly just would like to just meet her one day, just do an interview with her. That's
heck yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic.
Oh my gosh. So you're going to hear me gushing about Marion Cotillard throughout this movie.
she is a genuinely beautiful woman.
Oh, I know.
It's I've joked with my friends about the difference between hot and beautiful, and she's beautiful.
Oh, I know.
She just has that classic beauty that.
Oh, she has an Audrey Hepburn.
Oh yes, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Just really,
she's European. Just saying, women. Now Anne Hathaway's Catwoman. Well, she's not referred to as Catwoman throughout this movie. She's Selena Kyle.
Yeah. They leave that out.
I wish they could have left or maybe that could have been a name that she was given through the press, she's the Catwoman burglar or something like that. But
yeah.
What a way to kind of bring back the Bruce Wayne character, to kind of see him just all beaten down and just weary. Just seeing him hobbling on a cane. That was pretty bold.
Yeah.
On Nolan's
I mean,
part.
I think the first time I saw this, I was like, wait, what? Why? And then I guess I can see what they were doing, but I had a lot of trouble, like, really getting on board with this aspect of this film. Because I get it. It's a little difficult to overcome, but it's just that whole aspect of him being a recluse now
for 8 years.
it's just, oh, come on.
This is a really good scene between her and Christian Bale. I think this is the first and only movie that I feel like he has genuine chemistry with one of the actresses.
Mm-hmm.
So, and one thing about Anne Hathaway, I've never been a huge Anne Hathaway fan, but I think what she brings to the table is, I think it's quite good. I mean, she's very, very good. She has a lot of, spunk and a charm to her that's very different from the Michelle Pfeiffer Catwoman.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing I was kind of shocked with her Catwoman was how kind of sexually reserved she is. She's not as it's not pushed into your face like most interpretations, which I found that refreshing.
That's true. A lot of the other interpretations like get overdo the sexual aspect of the character, and it's to the point where it's just like, dude, back off.
Yeah. I do think Michelle Pfeiffer is probably the better Catwoman because she brings that aspect out. But here, I think this was kind of a little bit of a pleasant surprise, and in a good way, because I really didn't want to see these films kind of go down that route at all. So,
this scene, it's. I think I knew from this point is like, okay. He's got to be Robin.
Well, here was the thing that I had a problem with this movie a lot was because they announced Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Marion Cotillard's casting at the same time. It was in the same trades it was in the trades and all that stuff. And the thing that just shocked me was that firsthand predictions of who they were true. Like Marion Cotillard, Talia al Ghul, Seeking Revenge, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, John Blake, gonna be the future Batman or something like that. And that's the thing that just shocked me, like in a bad way, because I'm like, oh, okay, this is exactly what the fans and I had speculated, and there was really no surprises, if that makes any sense. I wasn't really surprised by that, and that was like 2 years ago before this movie came out.
Yeah.
So that's the one thing about this movie, though. I don't think there was that many real, genuine surprises.
Mm-hmm.
There are moments that are shocking, but genuine like shocks, like The Dark Knight. I think this movie honestly just lacked those moments. Actually,
yeah. I mean, it was fairly predictable. Which is just kind of a bummer when you have the two previous films, two previous films, at least with me anyway, I was on the edge of my seat like the whole time. And this one is just like, oh,
it's really reserved.
Okay.
It's a really set back film. And
it is.
And the stakes here. I mean, there's none of the characters. That's for a finale. For a finale, you expect things to really be pushed to their absolute limits with these characters, and especially with those closest to Bruce. You expected Michael Caine, Alfred, to die. I mean, that would have been a bold move, in my opinion.
Oh man, that would have changed the whole thing. That would have been an incredibly bold move, but I don't know if at this point they were willing to take that risk.
And the reason why is because they had to do this little thing right here, the Goodwill Hunting hint right here, like, I saw you in a cafe, Master Wayne, with a woman. Any woman. I think this scene would have worked better if the conclusion was Alfred dying. Like, that Alfred would never see this vision, or that he would never see this come to pass. And that's the thing that that's actually the thing that kind of saddens Bruce Wayne, is that that Alfred would never see Bruce Wayne have that happy, that happy life or anything like that. That would have been interesting if they had done that right here.
Yeah, it would have added much more of a tragic element to the whole thing.
Did you think that? Did you kind of figure out, like, okay, this is how it's going to end? Like, this right here is very foretelling.
Yeah, it was kind of like, oh, okay. Well, I guess I'm just going to sit back and enjoy it as much as possible.
Oh, man. But the thing that shocked me, actually, the one thing that kind of shocked me about Alfred's mentality, the thing about Alfred in this movie, he's very different, because he kind of states right here that I never wanted you to come back. In the first movie, he was very supportive about, at least the Alfred that I saw, he was very supportive of Bruce Wayne coming back, not to mention him trying to live up to the name of the Wayne family. So this reverse mentality is peculiar, to me, actually. Did you ever sense that at all?
Yeah, I did perceive it as just kind of an odd approach for this film. Where Alfred comes from being that guy who really urges Bruce Wayne on to bigger and better things, to really live up to his father's name. You don't really get that in this film.
No. I don't know. Like, I like the conflict, the ideal conflict that he's going through, but something about it is contradicting the Alfred that we saw in the first two movies. Maybe if it was designed a little bit more to where he has seen what Bruce has become, maybe it's just a matter of them writing it differently. I don't know. If it was written away where it was like, if I had known this was going to happen to you, I would not have wanted you to come back. Something like that. I think that could work, as opposed to kind of implying that this is how he's been feeling the whole time around. I don't know.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know, this guy, this British Burn Gorman, I see him in so many, like, British TV shows, and he's actually...
there's a lot of regulars in films like this that you can see occasionally.
A lot of BBC actors, that's one thing.
Yeah. Oh, no, that's true. And a lot of people are like, oh, I've seen them before.
Now, were you for the casting of Anne Hathaway as Catwoman, or were you for or against it?
I thought it was an interesting choice, but I could see it. I could see it being a good thing and a good fit.
Okay.
Because I kind of feel like she does have that personality and chemistry for the role. Mm-hmm. She sometimes plays roles in which her character's just slightly unhinged.
Her more serious roles, like Rachel getting married, that type of thing.
Yeah. So, this, my first thought was, okay, well, I can see that working. And I think it kind of did.
Yeah.
I wish they'd played out her character. Maybe, I don't know. It was a good fit, and
she does good with what she's given. That's the thing with a lot of the characters in this movie, is that I feel like she does well with what the actors in this movie do well with what they're given, but there's not really like a standout performance, if that makes any sense. I mean, she's a standout.
No.
She's a standout, mind you, but I think not in the way like Heath or even like Harvey Dent in the last movie.
Yeah. Well, it's hard when you've got a film that in many ways just kind of seems like it was cobbled together. It's hard to have anyone that just really stands out.
But I will say this: I think she's better in this film, in this movie, than Interstellar. Not gonna lie.
I don't know. I didn't mind her too much in Interstellar.
Now I like this guy right here. This one League of Shadows member, the one with the gun. His name is Josh Stewart. I wish they had done a little bit more with him. Actually. Yeah. I would have loved it if him and Joseph Gordon-Levitt would have had a fight scene.
That would have been pretty cool.
That would have been pretty cool. Now, interestingly enough, you get the sense that the crime, I mean, they've stated it, but you even feel it. Like, you feel like this is like this little gunplay right here is actually like the first in a long time that violence has occurred. You know what I mean? Like, that's a very weird, interesting feeling. That like a criminal act or some sort of gunplay act has occurred. Like you feel like this is just the first in a long time of violent acts or something like that, or criminal acts that's going on. It's kind of a weird.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess you do kind of get the sense that maybe they're not entirely prepared for this.
It's kind of nice to see Gordon in peril centrally. One thing that Matthew Modine does really well is that he makes you hate him.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You know you're a good actor when people seethe with rage over your characters.
Now, this is the same sewer set that actually the fight scene takes place. Actually.
Yeah. It's about to say it looks pretty familiar.
They actually, I think they used this set like 3 different times on like 3 different sets, actually, or something like that. So,
yeah. Anytime I see something like this, my first thought is always, how on earth do they fund this?
Who, the studio or the characters in the film?
No, the characters.
Oh, okay.
How'd they fund this and how'd they get this down here and go unnoticed for this long?
Now, one thing I really admire about Tom Hardy's character right here is that, Tom is not really that big of a dude in terms of height, but the man can put muscle mass like crazy.
Goodness, yeah. He looks ginormous.
A lot of protein. That's all I'm aware of. He ate a lot of.
Probably went on the training regimen for the 300 guys.
But here's the funny thing too. He does with all that that body mass that he puts on. He never left me questioning like, oh, he's really that small of a dude. He made me believe in his body proportion. I'm sure there were a couple scenes where he had to be put on like a box for height reasons, but the filmmakers do a wonderful job of making you believe in just the gigantic nature of this guy.
Well, I mean, one thing you notice is whenever you're looking at him, the camera's pointed up at his face.
Yeah.
And that gives you that feeling of dominance from him. And it feels like you're the one being dominated here. It's just one of those little film tricks that can really. It's simple, but it
works effectively. It's like the John Wayne. It's like the shots that you see in like John Wayne movies. It gives. And John Wayne was a big man, mind you, but the camera is always done from a lower perspective to kind of give a sense of height and magnitude of.
Yeah.
Okay, now this is a character and a scene that I have so much problems with. It's like, hey, I looked into your face one time when I was a little kid. I knew who you were.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I mean, one thing I thought is like, okay, how many people looked at the fact that Batman disappeared and then Bruce Wayne went reclusive at the same time? Like, did anyone else make that connection?
No. The problem with this scene though is that he says right here is that he identified with Bruce because he's like, well, I lost my parents. I looked into your eyes. I saw your face. You came to visit my school. I looked into your eyes. I saw your face, and I knew right there who you really were. You were Batman. I don't buy that. That seems to be like really forced exposition, or just that's another problem with this movie, because they want to try to get the characters' relationships, and I think this movie does a horrible job with the relationships between these characters, from getting them from point A to point B to point A to point Z, actually. Yeah. And I think the movie kind of suffers from that, actually. And the Blake character here, there's nothing for me. There's nothing really here, and especially like in the two other scenes that him and Bruce share, there is really nothing there that justified Bruce handing this kid the mantle of Batman. There's nothing really there, unless I could be wrong.
No, I mean, you look at this scene, and there's really not that much chemistry, and it feels forced, and it does make you kind of doubt, like, I don't know, is this guy gonna work? But
it's not mainly about the chemistry per se, but it's more about the relationship than anything else. It's not really. Yeah. It's not really there. These characters only in this 3-hour Batman movie, they only share 2 more scenes, and they're really brief, and that's it.
Yeah, no, you're right. The filmmakers could have done much more to kind of establish something resembling a mentor-mentee relationship.
Yeah,
and I think they missed a big opportunity with that, because they could have done something really good with that.
I know, and now the other thing too, we were talking about Bruce Wayne's arc and just like the 8-year, stint where he wasn't Batman. Like at the final, think back at that final scene of The Dark Knight where he's riding off to the sunset. Like the moment that it goes black, that was it. That was it. That was the last time that he was Batman. And I have to be very honest, that kind of kills the dramatic momentum of the ending of The Dark Knight, because you go into this movie and it's like, wait a minute, you had this powerful ending where he was going to be he was going to be fleeing from the cops, and that's it. That was it. There was nothing else to this act that he had committed or anything like that. That was it, and that felt like really forced to me, because you had just such a powerful momentum right there, and then it was just the dramatic momentum is cut off very quickly. And yeah, I look back at a movie like Skyfall, and I think Skyfall, it's kind of a similar movie to this. But you look at the structure of that movie, and that movie does a better job of kind of showing you the fall, the rise and the fall of Bond, and then him picking himself back up. That Skyfall is the film that Rises should have been in some structurally in some ways.
Yeah. No, definitely. I think Skyfall did a good job of doing, and in an efficient and straightforward way of establishing the downfall and rising back up of the character. But this film really seems to struggle with that, and just spends way too much time. What's the word I'm looking for? Pontificating, if you will.
Okay.
And you know, like we've been saying, there was so much more they could have done with this that they failed to do.
Maybe the film, I actually kind of thought about this. Maybe the film should have started off with Bruce Wayne as Batman, and then the final like mission, and then you cut to the plane scene with Bane, knowing that, and then you see like this weak Batman or like a destroyed Batman, and then you realize, okay, this is what Batman needs to come back because he has to face this opponent, like they did in Skyfall. You know, they showed they showed Bond being shot down, and then he had to build himself back up.
Yeah,
but Marion Cotillard. They honestly did not do a very good job of concealing the twist per se, because what was it? Again, they announced the casting. I kind of knew that she was going to be Talia al Ghul, and then that picture of her came out on the set of her leaving the city tower, and she's in the Talia garbs. I'm like, okay, yeah, this is the final nail in the coffin that she's Talia.
Yeah.
And it's such a shame that she honestly doesn't have that much to do in this film.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I can see she's kind of supposed to be that hidden villain in a way. But yeah, like she really doesn't.
I mean, like, but if she's going to play that type of role, she should be a lot more prominent in the film. I would say, especially between her and Bruce, the relationship between her and Bruce is just so forced in so many ways. They just, especially given the fact of, the two characters' relationships in the comics. There's a very interesting relationship there in the comics. I don't know if you've kind of heard about what in the comics the Talia al Ghul and Bruce Wayne relationship. There's a huge like tragic love story there between the two. That there's conflict between political and justice, ideals and all that stuff, and that was really interesting. That could have been a really this movie could have really played up with some interesting things right there, but they didn't play that. And I think that's another problem with Nolan, is that he's not very good at developing strong relationships between the male and female characters to some degree. And I think the Mal Cobb relationship was kind of good in Inception, but here, this is just another example of maybe it's just not his cup of tea,
Well, again, I feel like this whole film was kind of rushed and kind of cobbled together so that they didn't really have much time to really put a lot of thought into these relationships. And, maybe if they'd focus a little bit more and maybe just narrow the focus a little bit, 'cause it does feel like with an almost 3-hour movie that
you could handle that. You look at other epics like Ben-Hur, the Ten Commandments, they do far superior jobs of handling the characters' relationships.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But here's the thing with those epics. This movie is trying to be that epic, but a lot of epics try to, they go off of pre-existing relationships. That's something that Nolan is really good at. You look at Inception, a lot of those characters have pre-existing relationships. Here, a lot of the new characters have no relationship whatsoever to Bruce Wayne, and that's the difficult part because he's now having to jumble and juggle all these different aspects, like, the Catwoman character, the Miranda Tate, Bane and John Blake, and they don't come across as satisfying to some degree. Morgan Freeman. Be curious to see who they get for Fox in the future Batman movies, if they ever do that.
That'd be crazy if they got Morgan Freeman again.
No, they would not do that.
No, they wouldn't. But that would be nuts.
Did you hear about Morgan Freeman's comments about Batman v Superman? He's already said, like, I don't see how you guys are going to top us.
Oh, man.
He says, have you not seen Dark Knight, Batman Begins? Those are hard movies to follow.
Yeah.
But, now the one thing, they've just mentioned the fusion reactor. That's another thing about this movie I don't like. I'm really tired of just being so negative about this movie. But that's another thing about this movie is they come up with this really ridiculous MacGuffin that I really didn't really care for.
It felt pretty unnecessary.
Like it's another one of those Wayne products that is being manipulated to the advantage of the villains. I actually thought for a while it was going to be a weapon that the Leonard Powell character was going to create himself and bring to Gotham, but no, they're just manipulating a certain device of Wayne Enterprise. When you look at the Dark Knight, there is no MacGuffin in the sense that, that's being manipulated from Wayne's enterprises or anything like that. This is I can't remember what the MacGuffin I would say was more so the soul of Bruce Wayne / Batman or Harvey. Actually, no, the MacGuffin was Harvey Dent because everyone was after Harvey Dent in that film, I would say.
In a way, yeah.
So here everyone's after fusion reactors and vengeance on Batman.
Yeah.
The other thing too is that the nuclear bomb thing had been done to death in so many comic book movies. They did it in
goodness, yeah.
This year it was the Avengers and so many other. What was it? The Avengers and the Spider-Man 2. I think some of the X-Men movies had done it also. So,
I mean, yeah, it's the big thing to talk about. It's the big threat. So naturally, it's gonna pop up. But yeah, it's become something of a trope.
Yeah. I will say, here's another thing, too, I don't like. Alfred comes up right here, and he's already revealing who Bane is, especially his past affiliations with the League of Shadows. I actually honestly felt like that was way too early. Not going to lie, I felt like, wait a minute, leave that for a little later on. And two, how would he have known that, given how secretive the League of Shadows were? How did he hear about that? He just...
Yeah, it does seem like a really early reveal.
But also not to mention the fact that the League of Shadows was such a top secret kind of organization that the world didn't know about. So you would think that, what did he do? Did he just Google it up and say, okay, Bane, and then he sees...
Darknet, man. He went underground.
But I do like this stuff right here between Alfred and Bruce. This kind of conflict of, you cannot be Batman anymore because your time has passed. You've grown older. That time. I do like that conflict. I do like that. I do think that's kind of interesting. There, it's just not molded with the other ideas and conflicts that's going on between these two individuals, I feel like.
Yeah, it feels a little shoehorned in. I mean, I can see where they're coming from and what they're trying to do, but it does feel a little shoehorned in. maybe they could have spent a little bit more time developing that. But again, it's just, it's I feel like they cobbled half of this together and said, "Hey, let's do a film."
Now, okay, this is one sequence in the film, this and the upcoming Batman sequence. This is one sequence that I just am really just astonished by. It is one sequence that I feel like this is the one sequence of the film that I think has that kind of real life weight to it, or real life like threat in terms of a group of terrorists going into like a stock exchange and then just wreaking havoc. There is something kind of appealing about that idea.
Well, because you kind of feel like this could legitimately happen.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing that makes it so fascinating.
And with everything that's happened in our nation's history the past 10 years, it's like it's not one of those fantasy kind of ideas anymore. I mean, especially with what happened with this film in Colorado, and it's
yeah. If there's one moment that kind of mirrors that whole incident, I think this is probably this particular sequence kind of is the closest thing that kind of mirrors that particular incident.
Mm-hmm.
Like just a normal work environment that has, that's just an innocent type of environment, and then all of a sudden, havoc can wreck in at any time.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people have really been kind of wondering if this is a movie about, for or like pro rich people or against rich people, or middle class warfare. There's like this conversation right here. Do people kind of despise the rich people? It's another one of those situations that I don't think is really handled well in the film.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, did you notice this stuff right here? Like all this, like the class warfare.
There's definitely an undercurrent of that.
Yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. Undercurrent.
I don't think it doesn't get very overt, and they probably do that on purpose. I mean, there's a lot of theories running around about what this was really about. So, like, really, well, 8 minutes.
Time to go mobile. My problem with the voice is that it cracks up here and there. There's not like a consistency with the voice. It kind of tonally goes here and there. There are points where I really like the voice in a certain way, and then there are other points where it's like, it's just kind of a little bit all over the place. But
yeah.
But this upcoming sequence, man, this is pretty much one of my favorite sequences in the whole movie, next to the plane sequence. Now look really closely. It's all light. This looks like it's at least like 6 o'clock in the...
Yeah. It was one of the biggest continuity
issues
in the whole film.
Yeah, this looks like it's 5-6 o'clock in the morning. They swoop in here, and then you cut back to Matthew Modine and the other cops. Where is it? No, look, it's
yeah, and it's suddenly super
look
dark
at
outside.
that.
It's like, wait a minute.
Oh my gosh,
So that's not right.
the sun doesn't go that fast. Yeah, this is just... It's so weird that this movie is like... The flaws are just so obvious. But hold on, let's skip that. Let's skip that real quickly, because this upcoming sequence is amazing. I love this chase sequence and Batman's entrance
Yeah, this is great entrance.
I think this is probably my second favorite Batman entrance, right next to the first one in Batman Begins. What I like is just that he just
I love that look. Like,
Sorry.
what the heck did you just do that for?
Put that thing away before you hurt yourself. That is awesome. Well, what I like about this sequence is, obviously you know that this character has been on the run, and you're just waiting for when the police are finally beginning to, are abandoning the real mission, and now they're about to, gang up on Batman. That's what I like about this sequence. Oh, this is the first time we see the suit now. The Catwoman suit. It was weird to see a Catwoman with long hair, actually, because I'm so used to like the short hair.
That's true, yeah.
And I love the music too. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, the soundtrack's fantastic.
This is my favorite. This is my favorite of the three.
I mean, what was it Hans Zimmer?
Yeah.
Did such a great job. As per usual. I mean, when does he ever do a bad job?
Oh no, he doesn't do a bad job at all. I do like the chorus piece with the Bane, what's it called? Deshi Deshi Basa Basa Deshi Deshi Basa Basa. I love that piece of music actually.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see this in IMAX, by the way? Or
I did not see this in IMAX.
Okay. I heard this was pretty amazing in IMAX.
I have no doubt. They have some pretty great shots in this that would be just perfect for an IMAX.
Nolan shot like a good chunk of this movie in IMAX, actually.
Yeah. It was The Dark Knight, which they busted one of the IMAX cameras.
They did bust an IMAX camera on this one, actually.
Okay. It's not exactly a cheap replacement.
No, I think those things cost like $50,000 a piece.
Oh, at least. There's apparently only. Well, there's not many of them in the world.
No,
really,
no, not many at all. But
so if they cost less than $100,000, I'd be surprised.
There's kind of one thing about this movie that I do find kind of astonishing is just the visual aspects. Just like the coloring and the visual aspect that this movie presents or the visual design is quite astonishing. And
yeah,
that is something like this, like just the lighting of like all these police cars everywhere, and the fact that you got this guy in a cape just running around is kind of appealing. No, it's
visually some very interesting shots.
It is like oh my gosh, like look at that camera shot right there, just the camera going over the police cars.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of silly at this point. It's like you're giving up armed robbers who just hijacked the
stock exchange
and killed several people, and giving it up for Batman.
Here's the funny part: like when the newspaper comes out, it's all about Bruce Wayne losing his money, and there's no mention about the terrorists or
which would be nuts. You'd have so many people just totally freaking out over that.
I do like the bat plane in this one. I think
it is pretty cool.
Yeah, it is pretty cool. Not as slick as like the regular like bat planes like in previous movies or the cartoons, but this one's it's cool. It's cool nonetheless.
Yeah, it is cool. It's a nice touch. It's like minimal but still super awesome.
You had to do the bat plane eventually.
Oh, of course.
I mean, how could you not? I mean, after like doing the car, the tumbler, and then the bat pod, how could you not do a bat plane? Roland Daggett is a pain in the butt for me. I don't. He's good. I mean, he's a very slimy character.
Yeah.
Ooh, cussing right there. Just called her a bad name.
That was a bad idea.
Don't repeat this at home, kids. I find it hilarious that they finally made a comment about the heels.
Yeah, I know, right?
The heels, actually, I thought were not that big of a problem in this movie. I remember so many people were like causing such a huge uproar with the heels, and like people when the costume came out, people were just like complaining about everything. They were like, the costume looks terrible and all that stuff, and I thought it looked fine. It looked very fitting for what Christopher Nolan's world is. I feel
absolutely. No, it fits very well in with the what Christopher Nolan's created so far in terms of visuals.
Yeah. One thing I am a little sad about is that I really feel like these characters, specifically like the Catwoman, we're not going to see more of them. You know, that's a sad thing because I honestly would have liked to have seen more of her character and of John Blake. You know, there's something, they do leave you with enough an impression to like, I would have wanted to see more of these guys.
Yeah, I would have liked to see these two characters fleshed out a little bit more. Because if Nolan had been willing, you know, he could have done a lot.
I think the problem is that he's doing so much in this movie. That's the bigger problem.
Yeah.
You know what's another thing too is that these guys already have like machine guns and all that stuff. They're not shooting anybody.
I know, right? Well, up until this guy.
Well, and that was a weird part too. It looked like Batman was about to butthead him or something like that, and the guy just falls before, you know, contact.
Missed cue.
It looks like Nolan really kind of went for, at times, not all the time, but he really went for some really weak takes, in my opinion. So.
Honestly, I think they got lazy with editing. Because the continuity errors, and the fact that they chose that shot out of, I'm sure the 10 or 15 takes.
I'm sure they've got like better takes than that, you know.
Oh yeah.
We'll talk about like the Bane fight scene because that's a movie that I'm just shocked that they went with, you know, just the way they shot that thing. But
yeah, it's crazy because they had the same editor through all three films, but again, this whole thing just kind of feels cobbled together, and like they really didn't spend as much time on this as they could have, or maybe should have.
It is kind of cool seeing Christian Bale kind of matched up with a similarly costumed, you know, character. But it is kind of attractive at the same time. There's like, I'm liking this. Just the sparks just flying around. I love her flirtatious nature. Like she's just smiling and she's just, it's just, I like that stuff right there. It's like, those are like the only moments in the movie that I'm actually kind of grinning. It's like, I like this stuff, you know? What do you think of the relationship depicted here between Catwoman and Batman? Or Selina and Bruce Wayne?
It's an interesting one. Again, I feel like they could have done more with it. But it doesn't feel as forced as
John Blake
with Blake
or Miranda Tate. Yeah, I think of the relationships, I think this is the one that's probably the best handled because he's the one that she's the one that he ends up with at the end. You know.
Yeah.
So you had to kind of get that. Yeah. For the most part. I did. You know what? It's funny right here when he goes back into the computer. The one thing that they missed, the opportunities that they missed was that they could have hinted that Batman went up against other villains. They didn't have to say it, but they could have said like he went up against like the Penguin, the Riddler. You didn't have to say it, but maybe you could have shown like some Easter egg files showing their names, and then maybe even hinted that him and the Joker had other conflicts that we'll never see. That's the weird, like from the get-go, you really feel Heath's absence. And the weird part is that he is never addressed throughout this movie. And I kind of find that as a massive negative throughout this movie, actually, is like, that's a presence that should have been addressed in some capacity. You didn't have to mention if he's dead or alive. Just mention that there was something else there, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Now here's another scene. Another scene I have problems with. Like, people have gone nuts over this scene of how good it is, but the problem with this scene is that I don't see Alfred turning his back on Bruce. I don't see that. Then he's kind of saying like the reason why I'm leaving you is because you want to kill yourself over this, and I don't want to help. It's you leave him. Well, you're still leaving him vulnerable, aren't you? Mm-hmm. You're leaving. Isn't that true? I mean, if you leave him,
it seems out of character.
Well, it's a double meaning. It's like saying like, well, I'm going to leave you, and you're going to die. If you're going to continue, I'm not going to bury you. But if you're leaving him, you leave him vulnerable. If there's one person that turns their back on somebody, it's Bruce Wayne on Alfred, in my opinion, especially with this reveal with Rachel. That should have been when, Alfred, or that's when Bruce should have said, that should have been the moment where he should have just turned his back on Alfred. In a way, he does, but I don't see Alfred turning his back on him. It's just, again, it's just not handled very well.
Yeah.
And this is also the last time we'll see Alfred for the next, what is it? Hour and 45 minutes?
Yep.
How impactful would have it been if this is the final scene? Like these two, like this is their final scene, and that the next time he hears about Alfred is that he's dead.
That would have been nuts. I would have definitely added some insane drama to the whole thing.
It also would have just, if he had found out that, like, let's say like all this stuff, like Alfred's gone, but actually he's not gone by his own will. He's gone because the League of Shadows have kidnapped him, and that they killed him. And the next time when he finds him is that he sees a tape or something like that showing the death of Alfred. Because in Batman, what is it? Batman Beyond: Return of the Joker, they did this really great little twist where they showed Bruce Wayne witnessing the death of one of the Robins, and it's handled so effectively, and I felt like they could have done something like that with the Bruce Wayne-Alfred relationship, and then that could have really surged, the anger, that kind of where his anger comes from, seeing lost ones, that would have been interesting, but anyway. Now, I do think the reason why Marion Cotillard's character is not very well handled, or it's very minimal, I do know for a fact that she actually had a baby. She did have a child at this point.
Okay.
And I would think that would affect probably the initial approach they would have taken the character. Probably, because how could you not have this character not do a fight scene or have her be more involved in the plot?
Yeah.
I don't know if you.
Well, I mean, she's Bane has been for her hand, so to speak.
Her right hand.
Yeah, her right hand, and he's the muscle. He's the one who does all the hard work, and she's the one that's the mastermind.
Yeah.
So
okay, so I can
see.
Oh, go ahead.
For the story's sake, I can see that working, but yeah, it's a little hard to get in a fight scene when you're pregnant or recovering from pregnancy.
She was recovering from pregnancy at this point in time. So.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Do you feel like there's any chemistry between her and Christian Bale in this movie, or do you think the chemistry is just kind of just?
I think there's tension.
More so, okay.
Yeah.
Especially at the end there, but I feel like in these scenes there should have been. I don't know, I mean, these two people, Bale and Cody, are two of the most attractive people in the world. So, but and there should have been, and honestly, Bale has some really interesting chemistry with foreign women. That's the honest truth.
That's true.
I would have liked if the Roland Daggett character was Rutger Hauer's character. Like, this could have been his final last ditch attempt to take over Wayne Enterprise. I actually would have liked that a lot. But I think what Ben Mendelsohn does bring here is actually, it's still good nonetheless. So, one thing about the Talia al Ghul character that I wanted to ask you: do you given the continuity in this trilogy, especially with Ra's al Ghul dying, do you think they could have played up the love story? Do you think it was even possible in this continuity?
I don't know. That's a very good question. They could have gone that way, but I'm kind of glad they didn't really dwell too much on that.
Okay.
Because I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I'm really tired of love triangles in films.
Well, there would have been. Well, I don't know how much of a love triangle there would have been in this one, but.
Well, between
Selena and
yeah, Selena and Bruce, and then
Miranda.
What's her
Talia?
face?
Talia.
Yeah, Talia. It's just, come on. So I'm kind of glad they didn't go down that road.
Mm-hmm. I do. This is a pretty good scene between with Tom Hardy right here, actually, and also just thematically, it's a very different villain in the sense that there is power is not what I'm interested in. It's not about power. You don't have control over me. Not all the money in the world is enough to control me. I do find that fascinating in Bane, actually. He's not a person to be controlled.
Yeah.
Here's scene number 2, actually. Here we go.
Yeah.
This is the second to last scene between these two. I actually think, well, actually, I'll mention that when we get to the pit, because the pit thing is another big problem I have with this movie. The only big compliment that I can give this movie is the just the big action set pieces, and that's the visual language of the film, and that's pretty much it. Maybe some the John Blake. I do think John Blake, the performance and Selena Kyle are pretty good, but anyway, yeah.
Well, the production design and cinematography and soundtrack are just top notch, but they really fell short with editing and story development.
And one thing I will look around in this scene, I think this scene could have used a cat or some cats just wandering around.
I don't know. I think that would have been a little too cliche for Catwoman.
I think that could have worked. Maybe a little cat just nuzzling against Harry Lime style, just nuzzling around. Bruce Wayne's feet. That would have been kind of interesting, but
would have been a little too obvious.
Yeah. We haven't talked too much about Joseph Gordon-Levitt. I mean, do you like Joseph Gordon-Levitt in this movie? The performance-wise?
I don't hate it.
Okay.
I don't know. He kind of underplays the role a little bit.
Okay. I do think he's probably. I think he gives the second best performance in the movie, actually, next to Christian Bale's Batman or Christian Bale's Bruce Wayne, actually.
I mean, I guess if they were going with understated for his character, then he did a great job. I guess he's just still kind of coming into his own and all that stuff. But yeah, I don't know. It's a again, they could have done so much more with this character.
Batman's about to get some nuzzling. I do feel like I understand what she's going for. She's trying to manipulate him, obviously, and that's actually kind of been a part of some of the more recent interpretations of Talia. Like, she's done some pretty disgusting things to Bruce Wayne. Like, she actually manipulated him to the point where she was able to conceive his child and then raise that child up to be an assassin and all that stuff. But she has used, lack of a better term, kind of sex as a weapon against Bruce at times,
Yeah. Well, because, I mean, it's a personal vendetta with her.
Yeah, definitely.
Bruce. So, what she obviously doesn't have the, shall we say, martial arts chops.
No.
So she's going to go for the more subtle approach, kind of in line with what the League of Shadows does.
Yeah.
In many ways.
Yeah. I do feel like one missed opportunity, and this is actually something that could have worked a little bit better for me, is if her motivations against Bruce Wayne is not because of vengeance, but of jealousy. Because I think her motivations of jealousy would have been much more interesting if because Roz just says some really profound things towards Bruce that make you think like, wow, when looking at this film, it's like, man, what did he see in Bruce that Talia didn't have? Like, if it was about, like, if her motivation was simply jealousy because of favoritism, that her father favored Bruce above her, that could have been interesting. That could have actually had some interesting weight to the film. So
yeah, I agree. Yeah, because Ra's al Ghul kind of, it seemed like he viewed Bruce Wayne as his successor, as his heir to the League of Shadows.
More so than Talia. I mean,
yeah. So, I can see that being an issue, definitely.
It's another missed opportunity that they didn't play with, but
yeah.
Made love, going out into the streets as Batman.
No.
Typical
day's work.
I've heard some people say some stupid. I don't know how legit this is. Like, if you're like an older, sports person, so to speak, or physically active, you shouldn't indulge in such activities because it's going to weaken you. I find that whole theory to be absolutely stupid.
Oh yeah, it is.
Is that? I mean, have you heard about that before?
Oh yeah. A lot of times, I think people, it's just sheer superstition.
Okay, I find that whole theory to be just as so stupid that I just don't see it here.
There's some who say it's actually a good thing for physical exertion. This is an interesting scene right here.
Okay, yeah, I'll let you have the floor on this one.
Like it's an almost betrayal by Selena, and her kind of giving him over to Bane, but at the same time, she's not really. It doesn't seem quite on. She doesn't seem to quite understand the entirety of what's going on and what Bane's trying to do.
Yeah. For all she knows, he just wants Batman, but she doesn't know, as you just see, she didn't know that he was Bruce Wayne, so.
Yeah.
How do you feel about this fight scene?
Goodness. Like, I can see what they were going for.
I understand.
I guess Bruce Wayne's been out of it for a while, so he's not really 100%, but he just gets his butt handed to him on this.
Well, not just that, but I think it's a very clunky choreographed fight, actually.
It is. It just,
my problem is that when the punches are thrown, I can tell that, like, they're not making contact with each other. Like, look at right here. The body's reaction towards the moves are not in sync with each other. You know what I mean? Oddly, I don't know if you see that.
No, and I don't know. I mean, it's just the thing does feel a little clunky and just maybe, And this is the part where I think she starts realizing, holy crap, what just happened?
Yeah.
What did I just do? But
yeah. I do like this little the speech right here that he gives, I am, the League of Shadows.
Yeah. And I think it would have been very interesting, kind of like what you were saying earlier, if this had been the reveal that he was with the League of Shadows.
Yes, I think it would have worked right here.
It would have made this scene much more powerful.
Yeah. It feels like that was placed there because it's like it's trying to remind the audiences of what has come before. I think people, if you did it right here, I think it would have worked just as much more effectively than.
Absolutely, especially because if you hadn't seen the first two films and you're watching this, you do not need to be watching this.
But given the success of the first two, I would assume that this you would actually have known by this point in time. So,
yeah.
Now this I think is pretty effective right here. The hitting of the cow.
That's a powerful image right there.
That and the other moment that we're approaching. I've actually heard from some people that the reason why the fight is so clunky, mainly it's because two things: the muscle mass on these dudes, and also the costumes. Because it adds so much weight, and that causes you to slow down. And actually, here's the weird part: this is actually a very different style of fighting. In the other fights, it was. I've seen some videotapes of where the fighting was a lot more finessed and just a lot more energetic, but that wasn't. They didn't go with that. No. Now here, this is straight up Nightfall. Right here, the breaking of the back.
Yeah.
I do think that's probably one of the most effective parts in the entire movie, actually.
Yeah. This is a point which he's literally breaking the back of Gotham. Not just Batman, but Gotham as well. And, this is his defeat of Batman. It's a powerful image that they created right there.
Yeah.
Him carrying away part of the cowl. And
that was on the marketing. You saw that image a lot in the marketing.
Yeah.
I do feel like Bane's motivation. Well, I'll talk about that later. Actually, I'll talk about that just a little bit. But I heard Joshua's brother actually complain about her taking out, like, you know, Anne Hathaway is like a pretty slim woman, and her body mass is not that big, but yet she's able to knock out some guys. I don't have a problem with that. That's actually something that's far from my mind. It's like, okay, she knows karate. That's fine by me.
Yeah. I mean, like, yeah, but that scene we just saw, like, no. No, you're not going to put out a 180-pound dude with just one punch like that.
Yeah. She's
at
at least got to be like 120 pounds or something like that. That's my guess.
Oh, yeah. Tops.
I actually heard now that she's having a baby, so congratulations, Anne, for being a mother.
Hooray.
Yeah. Won't be getting to that Catwoman suit anytime soon. But, oh, man. The movie, I don't know what it is. This movie is just suffering from just a lack of... I'm honestly just kind of bored watching this movie. No joke. I'm just like, where's Batman?
Yeah.
I'm just like, where's the momentum? Where's the stakes? Yeah. I'm not... I do think this whole part right here is actually is pretty good. This little exchange between the two. It's kind of similar to like the interrogation scene in the sense that you're finally finding out what their motivation, what the fundamental motivations are, specifically Bane's in this case.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Yeah. Now this is, I do find, Hardy's acting in these scenes to be quite good, and just what he's doing with the eyes, like tilting his head to the side, and just the eyes is pretty effective nonetheless. But I do feel like Bane's motivation, while albeit convoluted, I am not going to lie, I do find it to be a little bit unoriginal. Because it's basically a retreading of the Ra's al Ghul motivation. He's just seeking to destroy Gotham.
Yeah.
And also trying to fulfill Talia's, wishes of, hurting Bruce Wayne. But I feel like as a villain in and of himself, he's lacking his own personal motivation. I mean, what do you think of the motivation of Bane?
I don't think he has any personal motivation. I think he's just so sold out to the League of Shadows that his own motivation or desires or goals are kind of left behind. And his personal motivation, his personal goals are the same as the League of Shadows.
Yeah. And Bane in the comics, and I don't want to make this like, okay, well, it's in the comics, it should have been this way, but, you read the first issue of Nightfall, like in the first couple pages, there's the Bane in that comic is far more captivating than the character that we have here, because in Nightfall, you really get a sense that he's motivated by symbolism, or just the idea of causing. He is the polar opposite of Batman in a sense. He wants to cause fear, but by doing it through, the wrong way. And I felt like they missed an opportunity to make him the polar opposite of Batman. I mean, you had that with the Joker, and maybe they just didn't want to retread that ground again. But typically with villains, there's always like this personal vendetta or this personal like spiritual motivation against the protagonist. And Bane, I don't think, has that here in this movie. Not like the Joker. Have you read Nightfall by any chance?
I have not.
Okay. Check out Nightfall. I think you might like that one. At least like the first issue, because you get a sense of the Bane motivation. So
Yeah, I do hear his character is a lot more fleshed out in the comics than it is here.
Yeah. Another part that fans criticize is like all the cops going into the sewers and all that stuff.
Oh yeah.
Apparently they did this stunt in Batman Begins where all the cops were on that island, the one that Crane unleashes the toxin. Apparently all the cops were on that one.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, that didn't draw that much attention to it. That was the weird part. That movie didn't draw that mistake didn't draw that much attention to itself. Here it is.
Yeah. Kind of a big deal on this one.
Yeah. Okay, this whole rope thing, I understand. I think this should have been... There should have been a little bit of danger to this. Like, any man who climbs this could die. And I think that would have been interesting if... That would have actually escalated the stakes in terms of, like, how Bruce Wayne was going to get out of here. Because I can't imagine anybody surviving that. Look at that.
Nope, he'd be gone. Because falling what it was, that looked like about 30, 40 feet.
Your back would break in two.
Oh, yeah, just the force of slamming into that wall.
And just the restriction, you know, like when the rope snaps would hurt.
You'd be dead.
And Bruce Wayne does it like 2 or 3 times in the movie. And I'm like,
yeah,
man, for a guy who had his back broken, he endures a lot.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive.
Again, it's the movie. It has to contradict itself because it has to get to these points, you know. And I think Nolan kind of found himself just like having to make things up as he went along because, well, I'm in the situation. How do I get out of it? Well, okay, it's cheap, but... And Nolan has kind of been one of those guys that would openly admit, like, yeah, I may have taken the cheap route, but, you know, it was the only solution I had or something like that.
Yeah.
Matthew Modine, don't do anything.
Of course not. He's a slime ball.
One thing I will say though about this scene is that I do like seeing Lucius in peril. That was kind of brand new. Lucius Fox in peril.
Mm-hmm. It was a nice touch.
Yeah, because you never saw him or even like Wayne Enterprise in jeopardy. You never saw that.
That is true. They were kind of insulated from the action. But in this, I guess, as part of bringing Bruce Wayne down is bringing Wayne Enterprises down.
Yeah. I do. You know what? I just saw Spectre, and I don't think that... Well, I think that movie did a far better job of actually finally destroying, like, the old MI6. You know what I'm talking about, right? in Spectre, how they handled like the destruction of the old MI6. I think
that was a nice touch. I actually really enjoyed that.
Yeah, film. I actually would have. I think that could have worked here in this movie. Actually,
it like
the destruction of like Wayne Tower, like.
Oh yeah,
like
no, that would have been a very interesting take on it.
Yeah. I think that would have been a lot more interesting to have, like, if Bane's motivation was pure like destruction. It's like, I'm not here to, like, it would have been interesting if he had his own motivation that Tally didn't know about, but if it was more like, we're going to wipe out the existence of Batman. Like, I think that was another problem with this movie, is that if that Batman, I wouldn't even say the symbol of Batman, because this is something that the first 2 movies were kind of about, was the symbol of Batman. I think honestly the symbol of Batman is lost in this movie. it's honestly just forgotten. It's like it's only when Bruce Wayne finally, even in Bruce Wayne's arc, there isn't really that much of a you don't really see the relationship between Bruce Wayne and the dual identity that he has set up with Batman and all that stuff. That stuff is kind of gone, in my opinion, at least.
Well, you also have the fact that, you know, he's been out for 8 years.
Sure, I understand that, but I feel like the symbol between him and it's not there. There's no, in terms of like, you know, him, like this being a finale, I don't really sense a finale motivation from Bruce. There isn't really anything there that's telling me that there's a finale arc. You know, like, you know, with Luke Skywalker, there's a finale in Return of the Jedi. He has an arc. He has a finale goal to save his father's life. Frodo Baggins, you know, he's out to destroy the One Ring. That's his arc. And, you know, there's, you know, other examples, you know, Woody, you know, in Toy Story 3, get back to Andy, you know, or something like that. Mm-hmm. Here, the Bruce Wayne arc, I don't think is handled as strongly as people give it credit for, I think.
Yeah, I can see where you come from. It just did play as big a part, it seems like.
Yeah, it's really secondary or even like thirdary because it's just not relevant. At least I feel like. Now, this football sequence is pretty incredible. Not because of just the explosion, but what Bane does.
Mm-hmm. You know, again, this is one of those things. It's pretty impactful because watching it, you're like, holy cow, this could totally happen. It's like not this the way it's all carried out right here, but just in general.
It's the idea of an American peacetime like this, just, you know, an American, you know, festival or just something like that is disturbed by an act of violence, something of this magnitude. I find that honestly quite appealing. You know, not that I would want to do that, but that idea of just somebody causing a destructive act in this, you know, American pastime is very fascinating to me, you know.
Well, it's a great way to get people's attention, that's for sure.
Well, the world's attention too, with something of with a festivity like this. I mean, I look at like what the Joker did, and you know, he was kind of more of kind of this spontaneous, you know, thing or terrorist that would just spawn off from here and there. But here, it's more forefront. It is really in your face in terms of just the destructive nature, and I find that idea, just this form of terrorism, to be far more incredibly alarming than something that the Joker. Anything that the Joker. I think this is probably like the one part in Bane's plan that I think that really stands out as something so powerful. And just just this idea of just men running through the crowds and with guns and just holding them hostage is just alarming, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, this even after seeing so much of this in the previews, this was still pretty powerful in theater.
Oh yeah, yeah. Take control. Everyone, have you seen How It Should Have Ended?
It's been a while since I've seen the one for this one.
Yeah, like there's one where everyone in the football stadium begins to mock him, like, why are you talking like that? I can't take you seriously. Okay, now Blake threw away his hand pistol, but now he's carrying a rifle. Like,
Of course.
He threw it away because he was like, I feel guilty because I killed these two guys, and now it's like, well, okay, so now you're carrying a rifle. Maybe we should have carried a pogo stick, maybe. If he's that guilty, just carry a pogo stick. This is probably one of my favorite scenes, at least with the character of John Blake. He doesn't really have a whole lot of action, actually, in this movie.
No, but this is a good scene. It's a very tension filled scene.
Do you see? Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna point out that that's a shotgun, not a rifle.
Okay.
That Blake is carrying.
Okay. I think if you wanted to change something up in terms of the villain's motivations, I think it would have been interesting if obviously they're trying to torment Bruce Wayne. I do think the fact that they are here for like 5 months and nothing happens and they don't really destroy. That's the problem with this movie, that they don't really take advantage of the equipment they have and say, okay, we're going to destroy everything, just get this over with. But I think it would have been more interesting if the villain's motivation would have been like, we want to torment Bruce Wayne in the sense of just showing that, why are you defending this city? There is no point to it. Like the villains are trying to make him realize that, why do you want to defend this city? There is no point to it because there is no good left in this city.
Mm-hmm.
That could have been an interesting approach to the motivations of the villains, I think.
Yeah.
What is liberate? To save you from I can't do it. Interference from the outside world. Now, but the problem that I have with Bane is the motivation is that he's giving it back to the criminals. I mean, those are the people that he views as like the underprivileged or whatever or something like that. Like, they're the true citizens of Gotham. Again, that's something I'm not too. Let me try to understand this. Like, they're handing it back to the people for what purpose? I guess it's like, are you? Mm-hmm. I'm not too sure why he's doing this. The whys. I don't understand the whys. I understood Joker's reasons. I understood Raz's reasons. Here, I am not too sure why he's doing what he's doing.
Yeah, like why would you hold it hostage instead of just destroying it and walking away? That's my thoughts anyway. Like, if you're so concerned about getting rid of a city because of how evil it's become and corrupted, why not just demolish it?
Get it out of the way.
Yeah.
And the League of Shadows is more than capable of disappearing unnoticed, so they could have done it.
Yeah.
I do like, honestly, I actually kind of like this military fatigue type of wear that they have. It kind of gives them that more mercenary look, but I do kind of miss the black kind of ninja outfits that we had in the first movie.
Yeah. Well, I feel like this is more of a appearances kind of thing. so that they look more like militant terrorists than anything else.
This is where I mean, besides the upcoming like kind of huge kind of rallying speech that Bane gives here, this is honestly the part of the movie where everything just really, really slows down for me. That's another thing too. It's like, what would you have? Do you think you would have eliminated the whole pit scene and put Bruce Wayne in this situation? I've heard a lot of people say that Bruce Wayne should have been in this situation, and there's something kind of interesting about that idea of a Batman, a cut off Gotham with all these terrorists, but at the same time, there's also a Batman inside it. That could have been interesting.
It's. I don't know. Like it's wow, my train of thought just completely derailed.
It's okay. But I do, but kind of going back here to Bane's motivations, he's turning the power back to the people. He's turning it back to the criminals. I mean, what does he see within these criminals that they're I mean, unless he's trying to say like the criminals are underprivileged, they're the victims of society. Well, in a way, they're kind of, I don't want to say they're victims, but I mean they are the victims of a conspiracy, which is kind of, Batman's and Gordon's, but still, you're giving the power of Gotham back to these insane individuals, who do cause, disruption to the civilized order. I don't understand that approach. I'm not too sure why. Well, I mean, I understand he's trying to build up an army. I mean, that I can understand. He's trying to use these criminals here to build up his own army.
But again, why do you need an army? Why not just light
just
bomb?
Get it, just bomb it up, just get out.
Yeah,
the thing
set that timer and walk away. You know.
Now, this is a scene that I like. I like the idea that it's finally that Blake is seeing Gordon in a different perspective, but they don't really follow up with it, actually, or even Blake with his perception of Batman as well, because here he's been kind of an admirer of these two figures, and now this whole thing kind of comes up. It's like it slightly dampens, but it's not really carried out to the remaining bit of the movie.
Yeah.
I do find this little jiggle with the head to be like. Well, that's the thing. It's like he's giving, it's kind of like anarchy. He's giving power to the people to do whatever they want. He's feeding into. Again, I don't want to repeat myself again.
Well, I guess it's just that notion of chaos.
But isn't that kind of being similar to Bane, to the Joker?
Yeah. I would see that, but I guess in some ways this is chaos as a means to an end, whereas with the Joker, chaos was an end of itself.
It's more for the long term than it is short term.
Yeah.
I just saw a bellboy just dragging a woman, and I'm like, what did that bellboy ever do to that to that woman?
Yeah.
Oh man. It will endure. Gotham will survive. And another thing I didn't, the whole countdown thing. It's like old cliche kind of the countdown and all that stuff. So now, Christopher Nolan has kind of stated that the reason why the whole pit thing was essential to the plot was because Batman has to now face the bigger well that he's kind of found himself in. You know, like it's supposed to be a symbolism of the well that he fell into, but now this is the bigger, symbolically this is the bigger one that now he's a part of, and that now he must climb out of it, and he must persevere. Do you kind of see any interesting like symbolism that Nolan was trying to go for between the pit sequence?
I can see that. It just seems kind of overdone. I don't know. I feel like in many ways it's not really that necessary.
Okay.
Because, you know, well, kind of like you were saying earlier, there just doesn't seem any real point to it.
Other than to be a symbolic gesture, you know, symbolism.
Yeah, purely symbolic gesture. Kind of a MacGuffin to the whole story.
Yeah. That chick looks so much like Jessica Alba.
No, you're right.
I am shocked that this Bane didn't do anything to save the mother. The fact that that's a little bit disturbing to see all those guys running to where supposedly the mother might be at. That's kind of a And ladies and gentlemen, the cure to to broken backs. A simple slap to the back.
A good shot to the kidneys. There.
Oh man. And he says, sleep tight, and I actually am one of the few people who would have. I actually think this scene would have been more interesting if Bruce Wayne was wearing the suit. Actually, kind of symbolizing who he really is. You know, obviously, I understand that he's trying to convey, you know, that this is. You're supposed to think that this is real or something like that, but I do like how they kind of. Wow, they did a really good job of getting a look-alike.
Yeah, that was a nice touch.
Yeah, but the purpose of this whole scene is trying to mislead you, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Did you think that Bane was actually the son of Ra's, or did they have you at this moment, or?
No, I think by this point, I'd started realizing what was going on.
Okay. I knew 2 years prior to this, so it's like, okay, yeah, Liam Neeson, I know whom your daughter is, so it is a shame though that Marion Cotillard and Tom Hardy do not have scenes with Liam Neeson, because that would have been that could have been some really interesting.
That would have been pretty cool.
Yeah. And look, he's all cured after a couple of hours.
No big deal. Good punch to the back and everything's okay.
Yeah. Or you should do what Joshua does when he helps straighten my back, just grabs you by the waist and just like pushes you up, and then your back straightens out for you. So
Easy peasy, right?
Yeah. Now, a lot of this stuff right here, people seem to compare this stuff to like A Tale of Two Cities, and that's a bit weird. I just want to say this. Do you think that she's a lesbian?
Thought occurred to me when I first saw this. I was like, wait a minute. That's not right.
And that character disappeared.
I don't know. I don't know if that was just kind of a kind of winking and nod thing, but
that honestly, that character had, after that, she disappears. She is never seen from again after that. Okay. Now, come on, get out of this pit already. I'm just This is where Nolan, I think, really dangerously skids between, you know, someone looking at the time like, come on, I want to see Batman show up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
We have a full hour left anyway.
Yeah, for real.
When the Dark Knight, you know, you look at the Dark Knight and you look at just the structure of that one, and then you just, again, you got a lot more Batman. I know at the end of that commentary, I kind of stated like, man, you didn't see Batman do a whole lot of fighting, but you still had a pretty heavy Batman film in that one. Here, there's barely any Batman, you know, and that's the sad part about this film. As a finale piece, you don't really have. And there he goes and breaks his back.
Yep. Again.
I think in the how it should have ended, I think it shows him falling off the cliff and then he smacks on the pavement. Now, that little kid right there that you see, I actually heard that she actually came out and did an interview where she actually revealed who she was playing, actually. And that got out into the press really, really quickly.
Yeah, of course it would.
Again, I think these scenes, if you omitted the pit, you could have had Bruce Wayne interacting with these characters, with John Blake, Miranda Tate, Selena Kyle, developing the relationships that ultimately would have led us to the finale. And I think that could have worked. I mean, had you had Bruce Wayne involved in these in Gotham, I mean, you would have had the structure would have been slightly different to accommodate, you know, the Batman character, because there would have been a lot more action.
Mm-hmm.
There would have been some more action, and I don't know what else you could have seen, but I mean, I think you would have seen a little bit more Batman participation in this whole sequence here. I mean, what do you think we would have seen had Batman been involved in this whole plot right here, or at least in Gotham?
I don't know. It's hard to say. Maybe a little bit more overt warfare in a way. Nothing too crazy, but still there. And maybe more functioning as a symbol to unite the residents and citizens of Gotham to start fighting back.
Yeah. I have heard some people say, like, you know, Batman's identity should have been revealed. And I actually think that wouldn't have worked. I actually like the idea that Batman's identity, or Bruce Wayne's identity, the Batman's identity is honestly a lost secret that no one will never know, except for those who do know, you know.
Yeah.
I think that actually kind of plays into the tragedy a little bit, in my opinion. So,
Yeah.
and people were kind of going back and kind of saying like, well, here with Miranda Tate, you see that she's the backstabber because she's obviously called in the League of Shadows, telling them or informing them that that these secret agents have been here and all that stuff. Again, the character. I mean, okay, yeah, that's fine, but the character has very little. She has nothing to do. She honestly has nothing to do. You know what, man? I'm honestly thinking that I might even just abandon rewatching this movie before Batman v Superman comes out because I'm like, I'm honestly just feeling the boredom right now. I'm not lying. This movie is such a chore for me to watch. And people are like, even the diehard fan, and that's another reason why I've kind of turned my back against the movie is because anytime I tried to share my opinion, people were like, "How dare you?" I kid you not.
Yeah.
What a dumb move that guy did.
Yeah, it was not smart.
But yeah, like I mean, I think like the first times we talked about this film, I think you were a little bit more positive at first, but is this a movie that has held up in your eyes as time has gone on, or is it a movie that has just dwindled as time has gone on?
It's kind of dwindled. I think it's always been that disappointment.
Yeah.
It was cooler at first because it still seemed, it was
fresh.
A sequel to Dark Knight, right?
Yeah, it was fresh in everyone's minds. And
yeah, and then after, seeing it again, it's just kind of like, oh, goodness.
I don't get the people who love this movie. I really, really don't.
Yeah. There's just too many holes, not enough. There's so much stuff that's just undeveloped that really could have made it so much better if they had developed it, especially the relationships and such. But
yeah, and even and that's, again, like what I just mentioned, that was another reason why I turned against it, was that people were really up in arms. Like, even like, I don't know if you heard about this, but when the movie came out and the critical reviews were coming in, they were really kind of mixed. Or anytime when someone said something negative, fans were like, were up in arms about it. Like, people were like, how dare you not like this movie?
yeah.
And that just kind of bothered me. And even people got death threats. Were you aware of this? Critics got death threats over sharing a negative opinion.
Wow.
And that, to me, that's just ridiculous. See, that's just like people. It's almost like Nazism in a Nazism. But yeah, this is the stuff right here that I was kind of talking about. Like, that the symbolic nature, because this is supposed to represent, fear. This is his fear. This is, everything that he's afraid of. This is like a trial. This whole pit is a trial, and now he has to really push himself to the limits to get out of this, of the situation. I wish that was ringing more true. The problem is that the absurdity of the situation is just, I think, overshadows the momentum, I think.
Yeah.
But the weird thing about this pit is that again, I think we kind of spoken how irrelevant it is, but you see all these prisoners here. I mean, who are these people? Are they ex-members of the League of Shadows? Are they rebellious members? Who are these people? You don't get a sense of who these people are.
Well, it's not. I don't think that's really crucial to the story, but political prisoners, enemies of the League of Shadows. I guess it just kind of depends.
The weird thing, though, is that this should have, well, I mean, they make it the point that, one was able to escape long ago, but the weird part is that it's kind of, in a way, it's hard, but they still have this rope for people to climb out of. That option is available to them. And should have been like, you should be trying to, climb the walls. I don't know. Now, this is pretty good. I do like this sequence right here of him jumping.
Yeah. No, that was pretty good. That was a nice little touch to the story. And kind of, I guess it's a good way to bring back Bruce Wayne from his MacGuffin
hole, basically, the pit.
Yeah, hole. And it's a nice little pick me up to the story. And then we're back here.
Yeah. Is this oh yeah, this is the Scarecrow cameo.
Yeah. And then it's this smacks of the French Revolution.
Oh yeah. Did you know that Cillian Murphy actually auditioned for Batman?
I did, yeah.
I've seen the audition.
How different of a movie would that be?
I have seen the audition footage, dude. It is pretty cool. But oh man, a lot of people think that this is where the Joker would have shown up. I say no. The Joker would have been far more prevalent in the plot.
Yeah, you're probably right.
But yeah, you just mentioned like the French warfare or just the French Revolution. I just mentioned A Tale of Two Cities a little while ago. This movie kind of has some of those similar elements, specifically with this whole like Gotham in occupied Gotham.
Mm-hmm.
You do see some of that, but you don't. Other than what we saw with Bane finally taking over, there's not really a whole lot here in the 5-month gap, which honestly, it didn't need to be 5 months, actually. You know what? If this movie had been 2 films, I don't know if that could have actually helped this movie, if it was actually split into 2 films. I think the cliffhanger could have been when Bruce Wayne breaks his back, and then the second part would have been him trying to reemerge. Fixing his body and all that stuff. That could have been, again, that's not what Nolan does. If he's going to do a film, he's not going to fall into that mold that Hollywood has done. He wouldn't do part 3 in 2 parts. He wouldn't have done that, knowing him. Because you know how in third films they always split it into 2 parts.
Yeah. Which would have been ridiculous for this, but I don't think they would have had a good reason to split it into 2 films, and especially since that's not really Nolan's thing, so to speak.
No, he doesn't do that. No, honey, I don't want you. You're too suspicious looking.
Yeah. Too convenient.
Too convenient. You stole my apple!
You got beat up by a girl.
Yeah. And the kid's gonna get some canker swords.
Yeah.
Oh man. Okay, great. Bruce Wayne. How convenient! How convenient
I know, right?
is
Talk
that?
about timing.
Oh man. This is the one film in the trilogy that I think like where the conveniences are just way too obvious, and it's just like. He's like I can't believe how quickly he's willing to trust Selena. He's like, I was disappointed, but you're good people. You're good. You're good. Here's a USB. Here's a treat. I'll give you this USB stick, and you could download all the photos and all that other stuff you want onto here. It's got plenty of memory space. I don't know how much of a fan I am of the clean slate device idea. I don't know what it is with Anne in this scene. She's just doing something weird with her eyes. It just seems so forced the way that she's trying to like do the Kubrick stare.
Yeah, a little overly intense there.
Yeah, she's trying to be. Yeah, exactly. She's trying to be overly intense, but. I'm shocked for a city that's trying to round up cops. I'm shocked that they didn't. That the drivers. Well, here's the weird thing: you have like 3 trucks driving around and all that stuff, and I know it's obviously from the villain's point of view, it's supposed to be a diversion tactic, but wouldn't you want to keep? I think the ultimate ruse would have been if you had just kept the device in a secret place and just left the trucks. All of them as decoys, that would have been exile. Willingly. Cillian Murphy, farewell. We'll never see you again. This is that's his last shot. We'll never see Cillian Murphy again.
Yeah.
Are you kind of shocked that there is no mentioning of the Joker in this movie, or at least like some implication of his whereabouts, or just something indicating the Joker?
Yeah, I can kind of see why they wouldn't. It would seem too much. See, one thing that I don't really get about this point is Talia has no reason at this point to keep who she is under wraps.
Yeah.
Especially since Bruce Wayne is supposed to be dead. Or maybe not dead, but in the well and unable to get out. So they really have no reason at all to think that he's ever going to come back.
No.
But yet she's still keeping her identity and goals under wraps. And that's one thing that kind of...
She just could have gone into a secret place and just detonated the thing. I mean...
Yeah.
Well, here's the weird thing. That whole scene was oddly edited because prior to that scene, Bane summons her to his side. Yeah, gosh, I can't speak tonight. And then the next scene, she's with the people. So there's just something kind of oddly edited there.
Yeah. Nah, a little bit.
Oh, I've read the screenplay. This whole scene right here with the ship, with the the bat, actually takes place before the bunker. Which that's kind of odd, because he's inquiring in that scene, in the bunker scene, he's inquiring about the bat, and in here it's just, I don't know, it's weirdly just put together. Scene. I mean, do you see? And here's another thing too, because Rob, Blake is the success that's going to be the successor to Batman or Bruce Wayne. Do you see anything there that makes him Batman? Other than being a believer,
I guess the desire for justice.
But there's nothing there that really says to me, like, okay, this kid is going to be the successor to this life-demanding task, I guess, or this... I don't know. I'm Batman. No. Wait a minute!
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I see what you're saying. Like,
there's nothing.
Not much in what he does. I mean, there's their desire for justice, the kind of lone wolf deal, but
now why aren't the guys behind them reacting? I've never liked that scene. I have never liked that scene at all. I remember watching the trailers for this movie, and the trailers conveyed a far more like Return to the King epic kind of film that was going to be very emotional, and here he is. He wasted all that time just pouring gasoline.
Can you imagine how long that took?
And he wasn't even seen?
Mm-hmm.
See, that's like moments that I feel like it's just, again, just the ludicrous nature of the film just doesn't work at all.
Yeah.
And then I know we've been kind of negative on the Bale's Bruce Wayne's arc, but I do think actually Bale still handles the material pretty confidently nonetheless. I mean, he still gives a pretty good performance. And even honestly, he still makes me miss him. Even after all this convoluted plot, I'm still missing him.
Yeah.
See, that idiot just didn't want to shoot him.
I'll give it to him. That was a nice line.
Yeah. Now, this is the third and final scene. Again, what is here what is here between these two that justifies the passing of the torch? There's nothing. I actually, a lot of people actually speculated that John Blake was actually going to be the little kid in the Narrows that Bruce Wayne saved in Batman Begins.
Yeah.
That could have been interesting. And then the ultimate reveal, and actually, I would have incorporated Blake a little bit more in the finale where, the reveal with Talia and all that stuff. And that could have been interesting to where it's like Talia then faces, you thought that Batman was, a person who left trails of blood and consequences. Mm-hmm. But then you could have seen that Ra's al Ghul also shaped, a Bruce Wayne in the midst of all of his works in the form of John Blake. That could have been interesting. That would have been interesting right there, I think.
Mm.
And now she has to kind of Talia in a way has to pay for the consequences of her father seeing this Bruce Wayne, or in this case, this kid, who's lost everything himself, and now that could have been interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I do like this one last scene between these two because it's a little plea, well, not last, but it's this kind of plea to say, just flee from all this. You don't really owe us anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's in the eyes. Bale just conveys so much with the eyes that, I'm not done here.
Yeah.
Was your heart pounding at this moment? Like, it's like, okay, great. It's the final climax, good,
Yeah, something's finally going to happen.
For people who've been in the well for 5 months, there's no beards or nothing to show. They must have gotten some good shaving cream.
They tossed them down some razors while they were at it. Here, while you're in captivity underground, here's something to shave yourself with.
Now, this is another scene that a lot of people have griped about, but I actually kind of like it. You know, I do like this idea of order and terrorism kind of clashing, symbolically clashing with each other.
Yeah. It's a cool scene.
I can tell that wall is so fake. They're trying to convey this tunnel. I saw that matte. That's a matte painting.
Of course it is.
The thing with this movie is that it costs like, what is it, $250 million? Where did all that money go towards?
Practical effects, I'm sure.
I'm sure. It is for the opposing force that has like a bunch of machine guns. I think that more bodies should have fallen. But there is something kind of exhilarating and exciting about this huge charge, you know.
It's order finally coming to face-to-face encounter with chaos.
Yeah. And then chaos itself, it begins because what is everyone? They're just battling each other. What's the goal with these guys? Now this shot with Tom is amazing. That shot right there.
This is pretty cool.
I come back to die as your city. No, I came back to rip your balls off.
That would have been an interesting line to hear.
Now the way that Cotillard has her eyelids like that partially shut, you could tell that there's nothing right in the head.
Mm-hmm. Like something's going on.
Did you I won't lie. I knew that this whole thing was not, that the city was going to be saved. I just knew it. So that the stake,
of course,
the stake. So that suspense was kind of dead for me, because it's like, well, you know, this movie has not taken any risks. It's been such a slow movie. There has been no risks, so I'm not buying in the possible risks or the stakes of the situation. So I knew that everything was kind of going to be okay. But did you think Bruce Wayne was going to die? That's been the big thing. That was the big thing leading up to this movie. Did people think they were going to kill him?
No.
I wish they could have done that, because it would have been such a departure from the typical superhero films at that point in time. Another fight scene that I'm not too keen on. I do like that, though. I do like that movement with the fist, and then it's showing that this is a different Batman, that he's gotten stronger since the last time. Do you like this?
I like that part where
the gauntlet,
kind of disengaging the mask, and it's kind of playing to his weakness.
Do you like this overall final fight, or do you kind of put it on par with the other one? Like, it's okay, but not great?
It's interesting. But it's definitely not the greatest fight scene ever.
No. The fights have been kind of underwhelming in these films. This one specifically, but
Yeah.
I would have loved it if he would have grabbed Bane's mask and started slamming his head against that table.
Yeah.
That would have been some... The villains in these movies are just so casually... I mean, with the exception of the Joker and the interrogation, that was pretty brutal when Batman starts punching him. But here, I felt like there could have been a little bit more brutality with Batman on the villain. I think that was kind of a...
Maybe a wasted opportunity.
Yeah. Oh, that would have been great just to have seen him just slamming Bane's mask against the pillar there and just seeing the broken mask. And maybe even seeing some of the mouth. I would have liked that. And this is the moment where people were supposed to be shocked, but even the common audience kind of knew what was going on. I will say one thing: the acting in this scene is good with Cotillard because I just feel like the other problem that I have with the character is that I just feel like it's a been there done that ordeal because like typically with Begins you had Ra's making his reveal and then you had Two-Face in The Dark Knight, and in a way I kind of see her as a copycat or a hybrid of those two, and it just feels repetitive to me as opposed to feeling new. I don't know if you see it that way, but
I don't know.
That's the only time we see Tom Hardy's face.
Yeah.
I will say this, Tom, you have some of the best droopy lips I've ever seen on a man. But yeah, I just feel like the character of just Talia, at least with that reveal, it just feels like a been there, done that, as opposed to feeling like, oh my god. But I understand what what Nolan was going for. She was supposed to be the representation of what Bruce Wayne could have been had he avenged his parents' death. I like that idea. Just not very well. Just not very well done.
Yeah, again, it was not played out as well as it could have.
I honestly, I don't know if you looked up the reviews at the time, but people who saw the movie kind of said, okay, yeah, she's good, but the twist just does not work at all. That was the biggest criticism with the Talia reveals, that was the one big thing that critics were citing that just didn't work at all.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't buy that Bruce Wayne is in love with her either,
Doesn't really fit.
No. It would have been interesting if they had played the love story and then could have shown the difficulties of her choice, that if she had feelings for Bruce, which I don't know if that could have worked or not in this continuity, but if they had shown that she had feelings for Bruce but is torn between duty above the feelings of the heart, that could have been interesting, but,
Again, it would have been a little too cliche.
A little too cliche, maybe, but I do... The whole thing with the knife, this should have been a fatal... I mean, look at that. I mean, she's twisting it, she's chunking it. And the fact that he survives that, or that there's no immediate, ramifications, or just, immediate... or anything like that, that you don't even see any blood.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of... It's not handled very well. And even for and here's the here's the weird thing too. For the she's the villain that's closing out this trilogy. She's going to be the final villain. Does not work at all. Like, she is going to be the villain that's going to close out this trilogy.
Definitely would not have preferred that.
And do you feel like, I think you mentioned this earlier, but do you feel like she undermines everything that Bane was trying to do? Like Bane, you feel like that Bane is now finally like the guard dog, or just he's second in command? You know, do you feel like he's more of a lackey?
Yes and no. He's the face, he's the muscle.
She's the brains.
She's the brains, yeah.
Yeah. And he gets the... He's in the friend zoned. Do you think he was in love with her? Romantically?
I don't know. You know, a protector, and he took his role seriously is that, but so again, probably dedicated wholeheartedly without any real thought.
And here's the send off to Bane.
Yeah.
I hated this. See, if people had seen that and that was the Joker, fans have been like, "Oh, we're okay with it," you know, and all that stuff. But I think if that was the Joker that was killed like that, I think people would be up in arms and like, "What?"
Probably. Yeah, it's a fitting end to him, though.
Really?
I mean, a violent end for a violent criminal, so.
True, but I feel like the problem was that now they built themselves in the situation, screenplay-wise. It's like, well, we need to kill off Bane, so let's just do it with, you know, the Bat Pod. It's just kind of an underwhelming conclusion to your main villain. And this is the weird thing about this movie. This movie is like trying to play against the tropes that you would typically associate with, you know, climaxes or with story, you know, the third parts in films. You know, it's supposed to be like the hero and the villain go head to head, and it's only them and them alone, no one else. It doesn't. It kind of throws that to the side. I wonder if that was kind of deliberate on their part.
I would imagine so.
Now, a lot of people say that this is the turning point in Blake's choice in terms of being associated with the cops. I have a lot of issues with that.
Like, what do you mean?
Well, I mean, it's just like we've never really seen him struggle with the law or the boundaries of the law, and now it's like here he's like, okay, I despise the law because it has too many rules, it has too many boundaries. I need to separate myself from it, or something like that. I don't know. Like, this is supposed to be the moment where he truly becomes Batman. It doesn't work for me. I mean, does it work for you?
Yeah. I don't know. I guess it's kind of a betrayal of everything he's held dear. And again, if they'd kind of fleshed out his character a little bit more, it probably would be a lot more believable. But with the minimal treatment that we've gotten, yeah, it does seem a little forced.
Yeah. Man, those tumblers couldn't shoot down the bat worth anything, and that bat pod just took out one whole tumbler. Another thing you just don't see with Talia is that you don't even see like a cat fight between, no pun intended, but between her and Catwoman. Nothing like dump. Wow, 5 minutes went by so quickly. Like, it was like 3 seconds ago that they showed 10 minutes. that's a weakness of Nolan's. Like, he can't really seem to really time match like these sequences or something like that. It's like, definitely you could shoot that thing on another date and just re-edit it and all that stuff. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know.
Do you find this action piece to be kind of a fitting finale piece to the Dark Knight trilogy, or do you think it's kind of underwhelming? It's cool. It's just, it's not really...
It is cool.
Yeah. I just don't see this as like the epic finale. Like, this is how Batman would go out. Oh, it's because of the MacGuffin.
I mean, it's got that self-sacrifice.
Oh, sure.
Later on, that
it's not
doesn't
physical.
seem incongruous with Batman, but
It's the problem is just with this MacGuffin thing. The whole the bomb and all that stuff, because that's the central conflict that they're trying to get their hands on, and I don't know.
yeah.
Like, my vision of what the final Batman conflict. Ooh, man, yeah, no one's getting out of that alive, but would be my vision of the final Batman fight would be something like, Beauty and the Beast, Gaston versus the Beast, that type of, in the high towers and then just fighting to the death, that type of thing. That's my vision of how a Batman fight, the final Batman fight should be, but here it's just a car chase. Get busy swimming or get busy dying. That's what he says. Now people have criticized the death scene right here. Because she just blanks. She blanks out, but I do kind of wonder if maybe she was cautious. Gosh, I can't say anything tonight. Unconscious.
Like she lost consciousness, or
yeah. She's not dead, but she's still alive. That kind of explains the weird kind of or do you think she's dead?
I think she's dead. I mean, not that we've been really super dealing in reality here, but there's no way anyone could survive a crash like that.
In the screenplay, it says she's dead, but
I mean, it makes sense.
I mean, I actually think there are so many things with this film that's left a little open to where, in 10 or 15 years' time, if Christopher Nolan decides to do another one, which I don't think it's going to happen, but if he does decide to do another one, I think there's plenty of room left open for these characters to come back in some ways. But
I don't know, maybe that was part of the intention to kind of give some open space for someone else to kind of take the reins and do something.
I do like this. I do like this cap off between the relationship between him finding out that Batman is Bruce Wayne. I thought that was a very fitting.
That was a nice touch.
Yeah, so many people hated that. I loved it. How else could you reveal that?
Yeah.
In the moment of him of Batman facing death, I think that was a very fitting cap off to the relationship between Gordon and Batman. In the words of Adam West, some days you just can't get rid of a bomb. There we go. And now did he get? Do you think he's still on that bat in the bat right there, or do you think he's long gone?
I'd say by this point he's gone, because otherwise, how the hell could he?
Well, I
How the
mean,
heck could
here's
he
the
have done
problem.
that?
Here's the problem. You have the final shot right here. He's still in the bat. He's still in the bat. So he's
Or is he?
It looks like he is. I mean,
it looks like he is, but I don't know. Like maybe it was an ejection seat, or
I don't know.
I don't know, man.
So this is the ending. This ending. I don't think really works at all for this. It's way too stretched in terms of believability.
Yeah. It's. I don't know.
Like,
they could have done better.
It's like trying to say, okay, like you're supposed to believe that he got out of that. He was, just ejected or whatever, and he swam back to shore. He was able to get away from the blast radius, and all this stuff.
I don't know. It's the suspension of disbelief is pretty difficult at that point.
Yeah, and the fact that he's in critical state at the beginning of this movie. He has been fatally stabbed, had his back broken, been in a pit for 5 months. It's hard to believe. This is where Nolan really stretches the boundaries of reality.
Well, I mean, he had been talking with Fox earlier about an autopilot.
Sure, but even then.
So I don't know. Is the whole ending just seemed kind of forced?
Is there anything positive that we can say about the ending of this movie?
I don't know. It was kind of a letdown.
I mean, rewatching it again. I mean, are you just finding this more and more to be like, meh? Maybe Nolan just didn't really want to do this movie at all. Finally, Michael Caine, where have you been? Yeah. I do think that Blake's arc. Oh, actually, here's something. Now look at this really closely. You actually see a smiling face. Did you see it?
What?
In that boardroom, like where they unveiled the statue, like you kind of see the eyes and a nose and a smiling face. People thought that was a tribute to the Joker, or the only, which I don't see, but
no, not really.
Alfred, you get all the remaining bits of the money. Here's here's the problem with Bruce. I just didn't see him abruptly leaving his parents, fortune, all this stuff behind, just in a reckless state. Something just about it just didn't sit well with me. I don't know what it was. Something about it just didn't seem. I think that's Emma Thompson, Christopher Nolan's wife. So do you think these guys knew that Bruce Wayne was Batman and they're just being paid heavily not to say anything?
I don't know. You think it'd be pretty easy to figure out at that point?
Maybe. Well, man, I mean, we finally made it. The Dark Knight trilogy.
I know, right?
And here it is, the cliched ending that everyone was making fun of. I will say that, closing down, I mean, this is a very well edited and very well shot finale. I mean, the last couple of seconds right here. I think, on a fundamental level, or just on on a superficial level, I should say, it is a movie that just has so many ideas, and if you don't think about this movie, and if you don't really explore it that much, it does there is some entertainment value to it, and I think it has some interesting ideas. It's just like when you start thinking about it, it kind of falls apart, but there is kind of something inspiring about seeing a young man, a new hero, finally taking that identity or that mantle of a hero, and also seeing your former hero just finally finding peace in life, going away and moving on, and to see this new character, no pun intended, but rise and finally take up the mantle.
Yeah.
That all of us can be that hero, I guess, is what Nolan was going for. But anyway, I just heard
something
some
like that.
Yeah. The Dark Knight Rises. We're done with the trilogy.
Hooray!
What a boring movie, dude.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
The pacing really kind of killed it, and it could have. Oh, there are just so many things that could have been so much better about this.
Well, I mean, Ian, on a final note, maybe just on a positive note, is there anything like that in terms of this finale? What do you think it does accomplish on a positive note? I would like to end this podcast on a positive note. What do you think this film does accomplish?
I guess it wraps up Bruce Wayne's story arc, and it provides a bit of a segue to, I guess, the next stage. We'll see what happens with Batman versus Superman, but it wraps up the trilogy, but also leaves it open for someone else's interpretation as well.
Yeah. Same here for me. I mean, it's a fine. I mean, like, honestly, like, when they revealed that he was Robin John Blake, or John Robin Blake, however you want to go about it, I mean, I did smile. I did honestly smile. It's like, oh, that's cool. Would have preferred Dick Grayson, but nonetheless, it still was.
That would have been too obvious.
Let me think. I do want to say something positive. I think this movie it boasts some really good performances from Bale, Levitz, Michael Caine, and the story unfortunately suffers. I do think this was a filmmaker who was kind of drained, and but does it wrap up the trilogy? It wraps up the Bruce Wayne arc significantly, and I will not say that this trilogy ranks up there with Lord of the Rings or the original Star Wars or even Toy Story. I can't put it up there. It's just not there for me. It is, I think for a third film, it's definitely the template or the blueprint of what to do and what not to do with third films, maybe. Yeah. People talk about the third film curse, and I think this film, while it tries to ignore some of those aspects, I think it falls victim to its own ambitions. I think I look at, like, maybe not Spider-Man 3 or X-Men 3, but I look at more like Matrix Revolutions, where it tried to be more philosophically profound in its ideas, and I
just
think,
ended up falling flat.
And I think that kind of happens here, but yeah.
Well, I think what really killed Matrix Revolutions was they stepped so far from what made the original Matrix such a blockbuster hit. Because the original Matrix was it was an action movie with philosophical underpinnings. And they tried to make a philosophical movie with action underpinnings, and it just didn't work. I think again, I keep going back to The Dark Knight Rises. I would bet you anything that Nolan had a set plan for the third film that had to get tossed out the window when Heath Ledger passed away.
Yeah.
And just the whole thing just feels cobbled together and not very well thought out. And I imagine Nolan was running on a schedule and had a very specific release date and all that stuff. So he had to come up with stuff on the fly. And so we ended up with this.
I think also, too, a lot of, David S. Goyer and Jonathan Nolan, who are the writers, they were really busy off doing their own projects as well. I do know for a fact that the writers came to a writer's block and they had to kind of cease writing and they had to focus, and that's how they were able to focus on Man of Steel. Man of Steel actually was born through this movie, actually. I don't know if you heard about that story.
No, I haven't.
Yeah, like they ran into writer's block with this one, and they just couldn't figure out what they wanted to do. So they had to kind of, but then Goyer said, "Hey, I don't know what to do with Batman, but I have an idea for Superman. Let's do that." It's like, okay, yeah. But I think the problem too was that Christopher Nolan, the writers, Goyer was off writing, I think, a TV series, the Da Vinci, the Da Vinci's Demons, and Jonathan was out being an executive producer and writer on Person of Interest. So everyone was just really busy, and I don't think everyone was able to really fully function on this one the way that they were able to previously. And I think, and even Nolan as well. I mean, he was the vision, he was the person that had the vision and all that stuff behind this film, but it just didn't come together. But anyway, let me just, as a trilogy, with this being the as an overall trilogy, what do you think? Do you think this whole trilogy in some ways works? Do you think it's one of the best? I mean, where do you think it lies in the pantheon of just films and superhero films and all that stuff?
It's up there. It's way up there. The Dark Knight and Batman Begins really carry it. If they'd all been exactly like The Dark Knight Rises, it'd be a different thing. But as a trilogy, it's way up there.
Okay. And do you think it's one that should be studied? And even with this film, do you think people should even study it and look at it and kind of analyze and say, you know what, for all its flaws, it still is kind of a worthy, it is still something that should be kind of analyzed and should be kind of deciphered and trying to, it should be something that other filmmakers should look at.
Definitely.
Okay. And I kind of think we've seen that with Marvel. I think this film has kind of inspired. I think we kind of seen, one thing we didn't talk about this film was the deconstructionism. Because you do kind of see those elements in Iron Man 3 and Captain America: The Winter Soldier. You do see some of that in those films. However, again, this trilogy, for all of its flaws and for all of its strengths, it is still a very important trilogy in the sense of the superhero films. And I think it's one that should be looked at. I think it's one that has definitely inspired to some degree future films. And honestly, I'm missing Bale. I'm honestly, when I look at trailers for Batman v Superman, it's like I'm missing. I miss these people and characters and the creative team all the more. So, But anyway, folks, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap it up here. So, folks, you can find more of our shows on iTunes, and you can find us on Facebook and on Twitter. So you can reach us there. You can also send us an email on s2spodcast@gmail.com. So please, and also leave us a review on iTunes. So anyway, folks, this is Chris Reyes. And on behalf of Ian Maffett, I thank you and have a good night. Cheers.
Peace.